Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. I'm Joe Grumbine and I will be your host. And today I have a very special guest. This is a friend of mine for many, many years, and she's involved in many projects that I've been involved with for many, many years. And her name is Lora Roberts. Lora, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could finally make it here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank God. Good to be on here. We certainly have been all the garden shows we used to go to, and the craft shows, and this show and that show. So much. Such a connection, and it's weird. Sometimes I make comments about
Laura,
people that.
I'm gonna ask to turn your camera off because. Okay. The video or the audio is still a little bit choppy, and most people watch this or listen to this from the streaming. And if we get the voice and not the picture, it's better than the other way around. How's that?
Okay, so now let's try. Yeah, that actually might work better. I don't know how busy
No. It changed everything. Right. Yeah, it took the choppiness right out of this. So I apologize.
Switch over and yeah.
Well, if you
can get on here now.
Yeah, if you get a stronger connection, sometimes we can do both, but it's a crazy thing. So, well, as I was saying, I'm so glad that you could come and join us today. You know, I can remember when I met you, and it was probably sometime in the late 80s or early 90s. I don't remember exactly. I think it was over I think it was over at Shannon's house in Buena Park. And, we have shared a lot of time and experience, and it's kind of wild because I've watched you go through so many changes, from who you were when I met you to who you are today. And you're still the same person. And anybody who would know you back then would go, yeah, that's Lora. Like, there's definitely a Lora-ness about you. But man,
there's some parts that you can't get rid of, the little snarkiness and it's less like, I call myself less sandpapery.
Well,
I really try, and again, that's part of the whole the passion for things, and that's something you can explain to people either about Christianity. I mean, you can explain the Bible, you can show them things, you can direct them, but unless you get involved the way you're supposed to, and sure, you can be saved and just say and of course it's between you and Christ. We can't really judge anybody on that. There's some obvious things, but still, you have to have a passion for it. If you go all in it, like I do with things that I have a passion for, it's amazing. There's no way, like literally, I would be alive today. Coming out of the situation I did, the downward spiral time when I was on all the pharmaceuticals, when I was just not able to work, when I had no support, when I was helping more than the other person who should have been helping, but that was just part of the problem, and the people you're around and their bad habits and stuff. It's hard to just survive in that. And right. So if you pile on a bunch of extra stuff, yeah, you get to a point that it's a do or die thing. So which way are you going to go? Well, and I've always believed in God. I've always believed in God, like a lot of people. But I wasn't, I mean, I brought my kids to church when they were little and this and that. But, you got to go all in. And just like this, just like embracing, I call it organic or, just all natural. And people think of the label things about that. And it's not. It's about everything you do, you know, how you do it.
Right.
You can garden and just, you know, keep your lawn alive or whatever. I've been here in this house for 5 months. I have about 5 squash out there growing on my plant. That has
In 5 months
survived
already?
105-degree temperature. Yeah, I'm here in April.
Wow.
That's right. It's September. All right.
Seems like it was
I
yesterday.
have growing and flowers. I know, right? It's crazy, but yeah. So, you know, and my point being, and I was talking to the neighbors here, you know, and just getting things cleaned up and kind of making things more visible. And ooh, where can I put a banner? You know, oh, right here next. I gotta move this little white lattice stuff. People say cleaning up, and so she's definitely interested in the gardening stuff like that. And so I was literally wondering, does it be nice to have like a little Bible study out in the garden and show people how to grow food and share a little scripture and have a little fellowship, eat some lunch with things that we grew, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And here came 2 tables for this morning. Like literally, I have a dining room table now and like the smaller table. Like, oh, thanks, you know. And so, again, those are the things that happen. Me getting here, me
Well,
having
let's
this home
Laura,
is crazy.
we have a lot of people that are going to listen to this show once it gets published, and most of them probably don't have any idea who you are or where you came from or anything about you. And as much as, you know, I like to just jump in and bounce around, I've got about a 20-year history with you. And so I have all these points of reference in my mind. Let's go back to the beginning or wherever you want to begin your journey. Like we were just talking before we did the recording, there's so many layers. And
Yeah.
right now, I think what I'd like to do is just introduce you as you want to be introduced. But who are you? Who is Lora Roberts?
Yeah. When we met was way back with people that, well, I certainly don't talk to them. A few of them are dead. You know, and the better life has been without all of that. But um, our gardening, our passion for growing plants was what really kept our connection. And even after all this time, like I said, I have no connection with any of them, just you guys who I met through all of them. So um, obviously they didn't have a biggest passion, you know, about gardening and all of that. We back then had met, yeah, through mutual friends and helped a friend that was, you know, sick and dying and died. And um, you know, and just kind of began your journey with all of the stuff and co-ops and all that. And of course, we had personal times we'd come out to the gardens and partiers and everything else. I haven't had any alcohol. That's another like thing that's just like, yeah, I don't even miss it. I haven't had a drink in more than a year, maybe a year and a half. You know, again, you just have to have a desire. It really, there's not much, you know, there's some great little clips and stuff that you can, you know, inspirational things, but really everything you want is on the other side of what you're afraid of, what you fear, what you think's going to happen, you know, so you got to keep going. And we've had a couple disconnects. Of course, we both have a passion for ending the prohibition of cannabis. And so with all the struggle through all of that, we've stayed connected. We've been on the same side. There's been some crazy people coming in and out and, you know, crazy things going on in my life. I was basically homeless really for the last few years and, you know, finally was in a room that was a nightmare. And over, like when you're 20 or 30, you're like, oh, whatever, okay. 40, you're like, oh, okay, I really don't want to do this anymore. Don't do it when you're 60. Don't do it,
Right.
okay? Because I don't recommend it at all, especially if you're disabled and you have few extra hands, you know, where you really need them. Not that I didn't, you know, have help, obviously, and blessings. Like I said, this house is a blessing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I was literally at the point of there's nowhere in the United States I can live by myself. You gotta be kidding me. there's a, like, in the middle of the country where it's really bad weather and nobody wants to live, there's still affordable places. And so I was like, okay, we're going to the last affordable place. Hopefully we'll get there before everybody else.
Right.
And, you know, my son Michael lives right around the corner, and we had talked about before this program through I am thinking through HUD, but I don't believe in helping your poor, broke, disabled parents, you know, if they can't afford to find a place to live, which quite literally was it.
Right.
And so, you know, all the nonsense with the COVID and stuff didn't help. As everybody knows, the price of everything, but, you know, along my journey, places just weren't fitting. And of course, again, with my walk with God, I was just like, all right, Lord, I'm holding on. Let's go. Where are we going next? And so I, you know, hit Michael up again about, you know, these places here he had kind of been looking at. And so there were a couple to pick, and this one. And when you look at it on a map, I mean, and you should, because you'd be like, yeah, that's, you know, that's the unique placement there for this gigantic city. It's like millions of people. I don't know how many people live here, but it's huge. And I'm like on the edge, near the Greenway, next to this path, with this yard that I can make a garden that already has beds, and they're not too bad. They need some work, but you know, I'm growing squash.
Nice.
So that was part of the picture. So again, it's just passion, and because of the things that have made me disabled, I have a lot of physical things. All the arthritis is almost. I have tendonitis, neuropathy.
Talk about that for a second, Laura. I want to, you know, sort of create this. You are here, and you know, you live with your body all your life, so that the things that you experience, you don't even probably think about so regularly. But these are things that if you were to plop your body experience into somebody else's body, they'd freak out. What the hell? I can't move. I can't. This hurts. I can't do this. I can't. You know. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, number one, you know, the origin of some of these ailments, and really your, you know, you talked about a journey from pharmaceuticals, and that's one of the common themes I like to address, because so many people think, oh, I go to the doctor and I do what they say, and I just
don't do that.
You know, I always say, dare to think for yourself, do your own research, check things out, because it's not just always.
And speak your voice.
Yes.
They're your doctor.
Right.
Just like need to have, you have a right to say whatever, even if you feel like you're uncomfortable doing it. You still have a right, and once you do it.
So first of all, I wanted to bring up that you're a military veteran, and I want to thank you for your service. I think that, you know, recently we've added you to our advisory board of the Gardens of Hope project. And I just, you know, people are so political minded, and they feel so strongly about, you know, things, and things are this way or that way or the other thing. But the truth is, and the reality is, had we not, as a nation or as a group of people, 250 years ago, decided that we didn't want to be ruled by other people that didn't give us any representation, and it was worth fighting and dying for, that we wouldn't be here right now. Life would be different. And from that point, 250 years ago until now, there's been all kinds of reasons or things that would have changed our path. And it's the people that have volunteered to serve and have decided to that this service was important enough to do, that gives us this opportunity to be assholes to each other, because the government's not going to come in and lock us up for saying the wrong words yet, and hopefully we don't let it get to that point. But bottom line is, whatever somebody thinks about war or the military or the government or this or that, the people that have served are instrumental in where we sit today and the freedoms that we have. And I thank you for that. So let's just start there.
Yeah, so that's that's true. And there's, there's still people that don't agree with, how active military we are, but it's really not just a country thing. Obviously, it's a worldwide thing. And so you have to have the defense, and we don't always have to stick our nose where it is, but when they do, and that's why, to me, all the disrespect for the president, even when I was a kid, you can get into serious trouble for some of the things people say about the president nowadays, and that's the top military position. So, you just have to have some respect. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them. But again, there's a passion. There's a thing that says you're willing. You're not just going to a job. That's your life for however long it is.
Right. You got to be pretty serious about that one.
Yeah, and some people get out, and again, they're just kind of, they grumble about it, or they act like no big deal, or they act like they weren't even in, unless there's some benny for them. But which, again, okay, but I'm proud to have served and made that commitment. And it's also not only good that in your own personal life, but like work-wise, and I don't mean just your craft, whatever you do, but people look at that as a commitment because they know you went to work every day, you did this, you did that, you did the other. But again, you're going to get out of it what you get into it. So you can kind of tell those people, those veterans too. But it is. It's something that personally I think a lot of people would benefit from. I'd like to say all people, but the younger generation now really has. I can't feel anything but kind of sorry greatly in trying to be their friends and things like that. You know what I mean? I mean, you can see the difference in kids raised as, kids. You're parenting them, not trying to be their friend and letting them, choose all these things that as a parent you should go, no, this is what you're doing, this is what you're wearing, this is how you're doing this, whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, there is definitely a commitment there. I spent 8 years. I did get out early. They were rolling back people then because there are quiet times as far as wars and skirmishes and stuff like that go on for sure. But it was a time where, either a lot of people were signing up or they just wasn't as big a need for, as many positions. And so I got out early. I think like a year early or so, but it's still counted as 8 years of service. And yeah, it's good. It's kind of a hard system. Medically, they required us to have health insurance. I don't remember if I was working for myself at that time. When I first came back out to California, when I met you guys, I don't think I was still traveling. Maybe I was still traveling, but not as much or something. Because I did do electrical work for myself. I had low voltage. I did low voltage, so all the emergency TV, telephone, all of that stuff. I went pretty much nationwide for one company, but at different places. Retirement homes was what we were building. And so, yeah, ended up, that was probably the contribution, aside from bringing my tailbones to a lot of the afflictions in my spine. I had a lot of doctors go, well, what did you do? What happened to your spine? I'm like, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean, what did I do? I didn't do any one certain thing. I can tell you what I did, like what hats I wore, what I did, and hauling big heavy things around, using whole hog drills above your head to make holes for your wires and stuff. I guess it ain't good for 5'2", 120-pound person. I don't know. I could do it then. It wasn't hard, and doctors saying, well, your grips are great, and even nowadays physical therapists like, are you sure you're that age? I'm like, okay, because why would I say I'm older than I am?
Right.
That makes no sense.
Nobody does that. Yeah.
And again, so it's really been kind of I've not always been kind to my body. Like I said, I used to party. I've tried all kinds of weird different things to do, but fortunately none of them stuck. Alcohol again wasn't. It was more of a social thing, my level, other than, regularity of it. It's hard on your body. It's amazing. Again, you can't clean up that until you stop. And I'll stop for 60 days. No, stop for like 6 months, a year. Again, okay, if you really want to, you can go back. But I mean, I have like no thing about, every once in a while I'll be like, okay, because I could really use a glass of wine.
Right.
Well, go to the little store right down the road, Laura, go ahead, go get one. I'll be like, yeah, I don't want one that bad. So there you go. I mean, and again, it's a desire, what you want to do, what level. And the sooner you realize the benefit of not eating fast food, of not eating junk, of not overindulging, especially in alcohol, things that you know already aren't good for you, but it's like, okay, I'll just, it's all right. And pretty soon it's just a habit, and pretty soon you're 100 pounds overweight, or you have type 2 diabetes. Is almost always correctable, or at least made much less of a threat to yourself by diet, by correcting your diet. Almost always. I have 3 kids. My youngest one was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 18 months old. And so that was really my serious start of eating. And that was back in the 80s. So they didn't have all the calculations, all the charts, all the things on the back of boxes for your exchange, what you could eat, how many carbs you needed, how many fats you needed. And yes, you need all that, and so again, eating whole foods, knowing what the source of your food is, making your own food as much as you can, using as little processed stuff. And again, if you can grow it and it's right there in your yard, why not?
Well, and you know what?
Eat it.
That's such a mixed bag, because everything about that is good for you, right? From the whole therapeutic value of thinking about it and planning it, and then getting enough passion to actually get out there and do it, because it takes an effort, and you got to plan it, you got to nurture it, you got to get those seeds or those plants, and you got to prepare the ground for them. Think about that. Prepare the ground. I mean, what a powerful action.
The Google culture I'm going to do right now. I'm sticking one in the corner. I'm 45 feet away from it. I'm like, I got it.
Yeah, because you're right. It will attract termites, but mine's way in the very, very back of my property.
Yeah.
So it's
they
not
said 30 feet, and so I got 45 feet. So I think I'm good.
Right. No, I'm sure you're fine. And the thing of it is once you cover it up, it takes a minute because you got to put all the stuff in there. And then once you cover it up, those termites aren't really, whatever goes in, they're staying. That's where they're going to live. Yeah. So this happens every time. Once we start getting into a good conversation, we start running out of time. And I just wanted to make this one point, because hopefully this is the first of many, many, many conversations we're going to have. Like you said, peel away these layers, and we're going to get down into some really interesting and important, experiences and wisdom and problems and solutions that you've come upon in your experience. But you mentioned one thing, and I think it's important that we all can acknowledge this, is that being healthy or sick is a thing that only you know and experience. Some people are sick in a way that other people can see, but most people aren't. And when I was running the dispensary, or when I've been working with sick people for all my life pretty much, and some of the people that have the hardest problems, the most difficult ailments, you would never know by looking at them. And I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me, because obviously, well, not obviously, but I deal with some alternative solutions to problems. And people will come and they'll tell me, they go, I went to the doctor and he says, well, you don't look sick. or people will come in, and say, what's wrong with that person? They look just fine. And just because you don't walk with a limp, or just because you smile, or just because you've got all your fingers and toes, doesn't mean there isn't something seriously amiss. And that's what this is about. This is about finding these solutions. It's about healthy living. It's like, well, we want the best life we can have, both in our mind, in our spirit, in our physical body, everything that we can. Like, why wouldn't we, right? And that's what this conversation's about. Not only identifying good things to do, because there's a lot of easy good things to do, but
and the sooner we do that, that's when you get to this age. Even with the ailments I have, having done that.
Well, that's just it. The quicker you spot it and the quicker you get on correcting it, the better it works. I remember, when I met you, I was a painter, and I was, painting buildings and houses, and I'd always go, and most of the people I worked for were retired, and they'd like to talk and talk, and I'd ask them, hey, give me some wisdom. You're old and I'm young. And one of the things that many of them told me was, you got to take care of yourself, because when you get older, everything will come back and haunt you. Just like in the Bible, it talks about the sins of the fathers come back and are revisited on their sons. Well, guess what? It happens to you. And when you're a fool as a youngster and you hurt yourself up, well, guess what? Those hurts don't just necessarily go away, and we got to deal with them later. And that has to do with habits as well, maybe more so. And you've touched on food, you've touched on alcohol, you touched on drugs, you touched on spiritual well-being and people and toxic. You have opened up this gigantic bag of information that I can't wait to.
It's whole life health.
Yes, and that's what we're here to talk about. So Lora, why don't you pop your camera back on, just so we can see you before we close up this episode. But I'm just really, really grateful that you could join me, and I enjoy walking with you as our paths are intertwined more and more, it seems. And I like where we're going. I like what we're doing, and I think we're both going to gain a lot in our lives and help a lot of other people as we're going.
No, this is just too weird. It says my phone is being used.
You should be able to just click the video where it says start video. There should be a little button that says start video.
Yeah, but it tells me, I think it's probably just lagging too much.
All right. Well, folks, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you. There she is. All right. Brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. And I've enjoyed spending some time with my good friend, Lora Roberts. And we will see you all next time. Lora, you got a final parting shot for us? Anything you
Just do it now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait to, tell people you love them. I keep telling people I love them all the time. I'm praying for everybody's salvation, because I want to see it all y'all in heaven. So take care of yourselves now, though. Your body now when you're younger, and when you get older, at least you'll have an advantage.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we will see you next time.